The persistent damp chill of early October settled over Kansas City, Missouri, clinging to the brick facades and turning the neon signs into blurred, weeping reflections. The night of the 2nd, it had been a standard patrol rotation when the call came in, a nervous, shaky account from a medical student named Michelle Matson. She described the sudden intrusion into the perceived safety of her apartment complex parking lot, the white Ford F-150 idling with an odd, predatory patience blocks away before it followed her in. The man who approached was young, his hair dark, his movements deceptively smooth as he posed a casual, meaningless question about a fictitious security guard's son. Matson recognized the prelude to violence immediately, a sickening clarity gripping her mind even as she turned away. The sound of rapid, heavy footfalls erased the quiet night air. The sudden pressure of an 8-inch blade against her throat was absolute, a cold, surgical threat. She felt the heavy leather of gloves and the immediate command to secure the black, fuzzy handcuffs presented to her. Her mind raced, a frantic search for leverage, for time. She fumbled intentionally, playing confusion, her resistance a carefully calculated stall. The predator, disturbingly, paused, noticing her purse slipping from her shoulder, and adjusted it gently, an act of bizarre, methodical courtesy that signaled a deeper, more chilling normalcy to his violence. A desperate image, her body abandoned far from home, fueled her next action. She bit down hard on the gloved hand clamped over her mouth, a sudden burst of primal rage, followed by savage kicks against the nearest parked cars, triggering shrill alarms. She went completely limp, dropping her weight across the rough asphalt. The man cursed, dragging her briefly before snatching the purse and issuing a final, whispered threat, commanding her to run inside without looking back. The white truck screamed away into the darkness, leaving Matson bleeding and bruised, one fuzzy cuff dangling uselessly from her swollen wrist. She banged on a neighbor's door, calling the police. Officers arrived quickly, noting the limited information, confirming the lack of surveillance, and bagging the unprintable handcuffs. Her ID and security keys were gone, a grim reminder that he held the power to return. The white F-150 vanished into the grid of the Midwest highway system, and the case, lacking witnesses, video, or a determined injury, stalled in the sex crimes unit, categorized as a botched assault, filed as a missed warning. 10 days later, the atmosphere had curdled from suspense into tragedy. October 12, late afternoon, in the tighter, older neighborhood of Armadale, Kansas City, Kansas. The sun dipped low, casting long, fractured shadows across 11th and Scott, a typically busy corner. 10-year-old Pamela Irene Butler, a fifth grader known for her relentless academic joy, rollerbladed down the sidewalk, the sweet scent of the cookies she'd just purchased trailing behind her. Her 11-year-old neighbor, Penny, played near the yard, while 16-year-old Cassie watched a baby inside, the front door innocently ajar. A white F-150, parked half a block away, waited. The driver, Keith Dwayne Nelson, in his early 20s, exploded from the cab with ruthless, practiced speed. He grabbed Pamela at the waist, lifting her effortlessly, and hurled her into the truck's interior. The motor roared as he floored the accelerator. Penny's scream ripped through the late afternoon calm. Cassie, clutching the baby, reacted instantly, stumbling into the street in a futile attempt to block the vehicle. The truck grazed her, the driver maintaining expert control even as Pamela fought desperately, her head shoved down below the seat line. He delivered a casual, insolent hand gesture toward the screaming children before disappearing. Neighbors erupted in chaos, one ignition sparking a furious, high-speed chase that reached 80 miles per hour through rush-hour traffic. The truck swerved wildly onto the highway, then vanished near an off-ramp, leaving behind only the partial Missouri plate, 177C2. The scattered cookies lay on the pavement like morbid confetti. The desperate clock began ticking, the harrowing statistic that defined the next crucial 6 hours. The plate traced back to a construction firm in Independence, Missouri, which immediately identified the recent borrower, Keith Nelson, a man matching the description and possessing a prior record of petty violence and disregard for authority. The interstate was crossed, activating the federal kidnapping statute. FBI agents Dirk Tarpley and Joanne Madden were immediately deployed, faced with the horrific realization of the brazen, daylight abduction, an act showing absolute fearlessness. Matson, seeing the news alerts, the white truck, the specific build of the man, contacted the police immediately. That was him. The connection was made, 10 days too late. The manhunt became a media frenzy, saturating every channel with Pamela's face, the bolo for the truck, and the heartbroken pleas of her mother, Sherry. A tip came from a church couple who had spotted the F-150 in a secluded lot, and reported seeing a multicolored Afghan blanket inside. By the time police arrived, the area was sterile, the truck gone. Later, a neighbor reported seeing Nelson feverishly cleaning the truck late at night, scrubbing the surfaces down. The vehicle was eventually found blocks from his mother's house, keys still in the ignition, wiped clean of prints, but forensic technicians managed to pull long, dark hairs consistent with Pamela's from beneath the seat, a terrifying confirmation of the violation of that small space. Nelson, however, had completely vanished, becoming a ghost in the vast urban landscape, a monstrous prediction echoing from an earlier, chilling boast to a coworker about kidnapping and killing a young girl on remote land. The following day brought a wave of exhausted desperation. Every false lead burned precious time. Lori Torres, a police secretary who had spent hours printing posters, decided to cruise the levee roads along the Kansas River. Her focus was absolute, Pamela's face seared into her memory. Below the embankment, she saw him, Nelson, limping badly, his face matching the internal profile. Unarmed, Torres maintained a terrifying composure, approaching him under the guise of searching for a lost dog. Nelson, injured, tried a weak plea for help. Torres signaled nearby railroad workers and covertly radioed the police, maintaining the illusion until the first siren wailed. Nelson fled into the shallow brush of the riverbank, his ankle snapping in the escape, a sudden, sharp twist of mechanical justice. Surrounded, he surrendered, asking repeatedly, with an unnerving detachment, if he was in trouble. He was arrested live on television, transported for medical attention, and immediately stonewalled all inquiries about Pamela's location, seeming to savor the cruel power of the secret. For days, the river was scoured, yielding nothing. Agents returned to the area near the initial truck sighting, a wooded, secluded place. Over 100 federal and local personnel line-walked the dense brush. It was the afternoon of October 15 when an FBI agent spotted a bright, misplaced fragment of color, a piece of clothing partially hidden under a pile of sticks beneath a low tree. Pamela was found, brutalized and murdered, strangled with a wire roughly 1 to 2 hours after her abduction. The immediate forensic analysis confirmed the unspeakable. Semen recovered provided an undeniable DNA match, Keith Dwayne Nelson. Agent Cullen Scott delivered the horrific confirmation to Sherry West on her front porch, the final, gut-wrenching realization echoing the sound of Penny's eternal scream. The subsequent investigation into Nelson's history revealed a landscape of profound damage, premature birth, potential oxygen deprivation affecting the frontal lobe, a childhood marred by an alcoholic, absent mother, and the feral existence of unsupervised boys. Siblings navigated dyslexia, violence, and fear, yet others, remarkably, found success, suggesting the failures were internal and systemic, not merely environmental. The psychological profile painted Nelson as a practiced predator whose casual sadism was rooted in a profound, irreparable void. The indictment came swiftly, interstate kidnapping resulting in death. Despite mitigation attempts focusing on his damaged background, the jury required only 2 hours to return a unanimous verdict of death. The case, closed but haunting, served as a stark, indelible call for constant vigilance, a triumph of task force coordination that arrived tragically too late to save one small, brilliant life. Michelle Matson, the survivor, left medical school, choosing instead to become a 911 dispatcher, her singular goal to repay the officers who tried, and to ensure that the silent failures of stalled investigations never happen on her watch again. For 21 years, the machinery of state justice moved with glacial, inevitable precision toward its sterile finality. Keith Nelson existed in the shadow of Terre Haute, a footnote in the grand architecture of federal death row, until the August evening in 2020 when the lethal injection brought his violence to a definitive end. He died silently, a man stripped of the power and control he craved in life. Sherry West and Penny watched the proceedings, searching for an echo of the remorse that never materialized, confronting only the same unnerving void they had faced when their small world was fractured by the white F-150. Nelson's final silence offered no catharsis, merely the cessation of a physical threat. Justice, in this ultimate form, proved to be an administrative closure, not an emotional remedy. The enduring legacy of the horror resided not in the final legal documents, but in the quiet, reshaped lives of those he touched. Michelle Matson, the young medical student who fought with desperate ingenuity in the shadows of her apartment complex, abandoned her surgical ambitions. The sight of blood, once a professional fascination, became a psychological anchor, dragging her back to the razor-edge fear of that night. Instead, she chose the relentless, unseen front line of crisis, becoming a 911 dispatcher. She sat in the controlled illumination of the call center, her headphones acting as a shield and a conduit, listening for the frantic pitches of escalating danger, the subtle codes of terror buried beneath stammered addresses. Her work was a continuous, quiet act of repayment to the system that eventually caught her attacker, a silent sentinel standing against the chaos, ensuring that the critical, early warning signs, the ones ignored in her own case, would never be missed again under her watch. Sherry West committed her relentless grief to ink, filling journal after journal, attempting to map the coordinates of an existence irrevocably altered by absence. Pamela's 10th year of life, her keen mind, her capacity for academic joy, all remained perfectly preserved, yet inaccessible. The case became a chilling national touchstone, a powerful reminder of how quickly routine innocence can be extinguished by casual, practiced evil. It underscored the profound vulnerability inherent in ordinary life and the necessity of civic courage, the unexpected heroism of a police secretary, Lori Torres, whose recognition and unarmed persistence finally brought the predator down. This chain of events, stretching from Matson's initial skirmish to Nelson's final, silent descent, speaks not merely of crime and punishment, but of the moral duty incumbent upon a connected community. It revealed the thin, crucial margin between a close call and absolute devastation. Pamela's fate became the ultimate cost of that margin being overlooked, while Matson's transformation into a dispatcher serves as a perpetual pledge that the vigilance required to protect the vulnerable is an ongoing, exhausting, necessary labor. The white truck and the subsequent abduction remain an indelible image of fractured innocence, a scar across the Midwest conscience. The only true redemption lies in the persistent refusal of the survivors to let the darkness consume the light of memory, and in the unspoken pact between citizens and law enforcement to honor the lost potential by treating every whispered suspicion, every unusual vehicle, every moment of fear, as the vital intelligence it is, the first, indispensable defense against the predatory shadows lurking just beyond the edge of the ordinary.